everyone. Hey everyone. Look, y'all know what day it is. Today is Sunday. This is our new show. New time is today. So, y'all, I don't know why I be doing this to y'all. I really don't, but whatever. Okay. So, welcome to another episode of Life of UnMothered, a journey from hopelessness to hope and healing what's hidden. So, with that being said, y'all, my weekend, before I even get started, I just want to tell y'all this weekend has been nothing short but phenomenal. Nothing short of phenomenal. Oh my goodness. I don't even know where to start. I don't know where to start. So, as y'all know, I had been invited to an event, Unbound 2025. Let me tell y'all something. That event, I have never ever experienced anything as such. And when I tell y'all, I pray if it gets to the point where it is going to travel, I pray that it hits Grand Rapids, Michigan, because it's needed there. And just to know that it's just a full panel of men talking about healing, that alone is just, it's mind blowing, right? So I want to give a shout out to Martha Glory, who put on the event. When I tell y'all that she put her foot in that event, she really did. She made her vision come to life, and I am very honored to be a part, was able to be a part and in the room of Unbound of 2025. That let me know that it's some areas in me that I'm still working on. And like I told y'all, healing for me, it's going to probably be every day of my life, because we have to continue to uncover trauma that we have layered since childhood. And so, it can be a lifetime. There's no rush to healing trauma. And so with that being said, y'all, I want to share a couple of things that happened in the event. So, for number one, it was some amazing speakers there. It was some amazing speakers there. Y'all, I'm gonna post these books on my page later, but I encourage everybody to run and get these books. These were some amazing speakers. You hear me? And I am going to read every one of them. And I encourage you to. I'm going to post the books on my page. And so I encourage you guys to get those books because there's healing in those books. It's healing in those books. And so we had to do a um we had to do a anyway. So we had to stick our hand in a book in a bucket and grab some rocks. And whatever rocks that we grabbed, we had to say I am to the rocks, right? And so, y'all, I grabbed this rock right here. Y'all can see it says I am success. Y'all, I think I was the loudest person in the room when I got that. I am success, right? Because I am. I am success. And I believe that wholeheartedly. One thing that I can encourage my followers to do is get uncomfortable. Get uncomfortable. Make uncertainty your friend. Because sometimes we limit ourselves by our beliefs. We limit ourselves by our beliefs. And you feel uncomfortable by walking into rooms that maybe is not filled with the same people or the same color as you, and you tell yourself, I'm not going in that room. Or, hey girl, yes, hey. So you may tell yourself that you are uncomfortable going into that room or that setting or the event or whatever the case may be. But let me tell you something. It's blessings in rooms that you're scared to step in. And I'm so serious when I say that. So I encourage you to put yourself in an uncomfortable environment. When something is coming to your city, something is coming from an individual that you never connected with, or or they say, well, go talk to such and such, and you tell yourself, or your survival instincts kick in, that you talking to a stranger is dangerous. However, that stranger can be holding a resource that you need. That stranger can be holding a door open for you to just walk through. If you be uncomfortable and you move forward in faith, because God said we have to have faith a size of a mustard seed, right? That's all it takes for you to get an extreme blessing. Y'all, some of us is out here trying to reinvent the wheel when it's somebody already over here that's created the wheel already, where you don't have to reinvent it. So my encouragement and my word to you is to get uncomfortable. Put yourself in uncomfortable, of course, certain situations, but when it's dealing with your growth, get uncomfortable, especially when it's dealing with your growth. So, with that being said, y'all, I'm just gonna tell y'all, and y'all know I don't give away. I don't tell y'all my next steps. I don't do that. However, I just want to say the blessing that I received today was just so mind blowing. Not even today, the entire weekend, every day from Friday, a blessing has came upon me. A blessing has came upon me from Friday to today. A blessing has came upon me. Now, I'm going to just say this. I made it to season 5 of a show. And I'm not gonna give it away. I'm not gonna do none of that. But understand, and I had already told my followers and my supporters, I don't do anything if I cannot talk about my healing path, my journey, my book, and how I'm helping others. So no, you would not see me on nothing ratchet or anything like that. But if I am able to share my journey, my truth, be transparent about my life, then I am going to hit every platform that God has for me to do, to spread awareness about living, about surviving trauma, because you can't live outside the trauma. You just have to be willing to do the work. So, y'all, this weekend was phenomenal. Thank you. This weekend was phenomenal. And I cannot, let's just say that God is filling my calendar for 2026 already. And I have not even stepped into the room and into the rooms, and I have not even known the people that are opening doors for me less than 5 months. But God is filling my calendar already with events, with opportunities, and oh my God, that's all I can say. I pulled this stone right before I left. They told me to pull another stone. I pulled trust, and it says trust God in the process. Trust God in the process, and you will be successful. These are the two stones that I pulled tonight: trust and success. Oh my God. And so, y'all, I am so honored and so thankful for the connections that I've made. These are not just connections, they are lifelong connections turned family. That is what it is. And so, y'all, I can go on and on and on about tonight, about his blessings, the about everything. But however, I want to give a shout out to Martha Glory. You brought your vision to life. You created a safe space for us to heal, continue to heal, and help others heal as a community. And I thank you and I love you for that. And I pray that 2026 be bigger and better and bolder than 2025. So, y'all, stay tuned. And when I tell y'all, when the announcement for Unbound come from 2026, I pray that all of my supporters will get a ticket and come. Come. When I tell you I have never experienced something so magnificent. Yes, something so magnificent. So, oh yes, Naya, I'm sorry, I done messed your name up, but I'm so glad that we met and we are going to keep in contact. Y'all, I'm so honored. I'm so honored. So, with that being said, thank y'all for this book. Thank you for the support of Breaking the Cycles, How to Heal When You've Been Hurt by Family. This book right here is the start and journey to someone's freedom. And I tell you all the time, if you got this book, do the work. Do the work. I know that one thing that I said that I was telling people that it's not perfect because it's my first self-published book, but God told me to stop telling people that it's not perfect because it's what you created, and that's perfect. And so with that being said, I want to thank y'all for supporting my perfect first self-published book. Thank you. Spread the word and spread the word again. So with that being said, y'all, we're going to jump right on into this episode tonight. As y'all can see, we are going to discuss emotional regulations versus survival, emotional survival. So we're going to break down what each one is, so you can have the definition to, you can put it in your life. Make it make sense for you, because it's a lot of people that are living on survival emotions, right? Emotional survival. That's why we have a lot of dysregulated people out in the world. So we're going to break this down. Let me read my statement piece as I always do every week. I love y'all. I love y'all support. Thank you so much. So this show was born from pain I never deserved, and the healing that I fiercely fought for. I know what it's like to be unmothered, to grow up without the nurture, protection, or the love I needed. I was raised in survival, told to stay silent and expect to smile through it all. But I also know what it's like to break cycles, to reclaim your voice, and to rewrite your story. My mission, my life's purpose, is to shine a light on childhood trauma and abuse and the pain that most people are too scared to talk about. To expose the wounds we were taught to hide to help others rise from them too. This is more than just a show. This is a movement, a mirror, a safe house for truth. It's for the ones who were told to get over it, but never had a chance to process it. It's for the inner child still wanting to be seen. Because healing isn't just personal, it's generational. And I'm not just healing for me, I'm healing for my lineage and helping others to do the same. So if you ever felt unseen, unloved, or unmothered, just know you are not alone and we are healing together. Y'all, so welcome to the 12th episode of Life UnMothered, going from hopelessness to hope, and we healing what's been hidden. So let's jump right on into the the show tonight. So tonight we're talking about emotional regulation and emotional survival. So what is the difference between emotional regulation? So emotional regulation is the ability to feel your emotions, to identify them and respond to them in a healthy and intentional way. It's a learned skill, not a instinct. Y'all, did y'all hear what it said? Emotional regulation is something that we have to learn. It's a learned skill. And so, in a healthy family, emotional regulation looks like, and this is what it looks like in a healthy family. And what I always tell y'all, number one, we got a name, and that's it. That's it. So, naming and processing the feelings. We have to talk about it. We have to name what it is. So you have to say, I feel angry because, and that's a form of emotional regulation. Using coping skills or tools, deep breath, journaling. Y'all know I always talk about journaling. That's very important. Or taking breaks. Responding rather than reacting is a sign of emotional regulation. Repairing after conflict. I'm sorry. I yelled. Let's talk. That's emotional regulation, right? So it teaches children that, for number one, emotions are safe. For number two, it's okay to feel and express them. And for number three, there is a space to pause. There's a space to think and to choose how to respond. So these are emotional regulations. So what is emotional survival? Now, we all know that majority of the time in our community is that we're stuck in survival mode. And so everything that is wrapped around our lives is based on survival. And so what is survival mode? So emotional survival is what kicks in when you're living in constant emotional chaos, abuse, or fear. It's not about managing feelings, it's about shutting them down or reacting fast to stay safe. In a dysfunctional family, emotional survival looks like walking on eggshells to avoid triggering someone, suppressing your own feelings to keep the peace, reacting with fight, flight, freeze, or fawn, numbing emotions to cope with substance, isolation, or people pleasing. And what does it teach us? And so, like I told y'all, this show is about, we talk about the mother wounds. But you can piece this together however you like to. But on this show, Life UnMothered, we talk about mother wounds. And so we talk about how we were raised with trauma, and then we talk about how we pass the pattern on to our children. So with this being in emotional survival taught us and our children is that emotions are dangerous and burdensome. It's safer to disconnect, explode, or stay invisible. Y'all did it. To stay invisible. Survival means staying alert, not safe. So that means that our nervous system is always on alert. Like we scanning danger for everything. And so it will impact your life when you don't know the difference. Now, a lot of times we don't know the difference because why? We did not have these definitions growing up. Nobody told us that we were living in survival mode growing up. Nobody said these things to us. Nobody said that we was birthed into trauma. So of course, these things are going to go unhealed, right? Because first of all, we don't know the names to them. That's for number one. And so if you can name it, you can change it, right? So we have to know the names in order to know the definitions, in order to know what we're facing when it comes up. We can see these things. And so that's very important to learn the language of trauma, because reveal it in order to heal it. That's what we have to do, because at the end of the day, we can mask trauma all that we want. We can mask it all that we want, but at the end of the day, you're not getting healing under a mask. You are not getting healing under a mask, and especially God can't touch that. God will not heal a mask. So you got to reveal it. You got to take it off, right? And so learning these definitions about trauma is helping you to reveal your mask, because now you can take that mask off and say, I'm facing shame, or I feel guilt, or I feel abandonment, or I'm touching on rejection, or that looks like a trigger. You can name these things. And so that is part of healing, because people tell you all the time, go heal, go heal. But what are you actually healing, right? Healing it's not a big, it's not, no, healing is a piece of a pie, and we got to touch every single piece of that pie. Y'all know I talk about this every week. We got to touch all of them pieces, right? And so what it says, yes, God can't heal the mask. Okay, so we're going to keep going. So the impact that emotional survival will have on families stuck in survival. It says the impact on dysfunctional families. Families stuck in emotional survival don't model healthy emotional responses. Shaming children for crying, shaming children for being too sensitive or having needs. Passing down trauma as children grow up emotionally react or numb. Mistake emotional control for strength. Don't cry or toughen up, right? So the cycle continues when this is because look, if we already know a lot of times it go unhealed, right? The cycle gonna continue when parents never learn regulations themselves. So if you don't know how to regulate your own self, how can you teach your children how to regulate, right? So healing first, before we can even start to pass this on to the next generation, we got to start with self. We have to learn with self, because in order to become a teacher, you have to learn, right? So you got to learn how to do it with self, and it starts here, right? You said masking trauma so we don't hurt others. Yeah, that's what it is. You said things that aren't covered don't heal well. Yes. One thing, look, let me tell you something. In the conference that I went to this weekend, and it stuck out with me. They said, you know how you go into surgery, right? They lay you on the bed, you say, kiss your loved ones, and they roll you in the surgery room by yourself, right? So this is what healing, when it comes to us, because we have to take care of us first before we can pass on the healed part, right? Because in surgery, they take care of us, they open us up, clean us out. That's what God got to do for our hearts, y'all. You know, God got to touch that dark place that we have held and we don't want nobody to see, right? And a lot of times when you hear therapists or coaches, they're trying to coach you to move forward, right? which is good. Don't get me wrong, coach you to move forward, but at the same time, sometimes that coaching can be cementing a wound that needs to be touched, right? And the only thing that cement gonna do is continue to crack because it's on unlevel ground. So it's gonna crack and it's gonna weather it and it's gonna move and shift, right? Because we're not healed. We don't have a flat surface, and we've been pounding trauma on an unsteady, broken surface for years, right? So we have to do that surgery. We have to allow God to come in. But one thing about it is, you said clean us up and outline. Yes. Yes, Lord. So, but one thing about it is that you have to be willing to take that band-aid off of what's hurting you, right? You have to be willing to want to take that band-aid off of what's hurting you. And I know that some of us got some band-aids that have been on wounds for 20 and 30 years. But guess what? You know the saying how it says, take 2 steps back to move 4 steps forward? That's sometimes what you got to do. That is what you have to do. Because regardless of how much we try to run from our past, guess what? If you don't take care of it, it's right on your heels. It's right on your heels, and it's showing up in relationships. It's showing up in your parenting, on your jobs, with your friends. It's showing up, right? And so that's just what it is. It's just trauma resurfacing, you know. So instead of us running from it, we got to turn around and confront it. That means naming, this is what's going on with me, you know, so that we can stop allowing trauma to control our life, you know, because unconsciously we say sometimes we got it all in the bag, but in actuality it's not. Because we never had the language to clean it up, right? So let's keep going, y'all. So it says the impact on I read the cycles. So it says the cycles continue when parents never learn regulations themselves. Kids adopt survival tactics. We learn to shut down. We learn to people please, and we learn to lash out. So relationships become built on fear, built on guilt or control, and not connection. And so, um, this, it says breaking the cycle means moving from. We gotta move from. You say it shows up and breaks havoc. Yes, yes, it does. Totally break havoc into their destiny. But one thing that I learned is that for me and a lot of other survivors is that we learned that our purpose was formed in our pain. And people don't know that. People struggle with asking themselves, what is my purpose? What is my purpose? Your purpose is in your pain. But you're afraid to touch that pain because, first of all, you don't want nobody to know. One thing we cannot change is the past. What happens has happened. What happened has happened. And we can't change that, right? But we learn to form our identity. We take on an identity of silence. And silence is the cancer of trauma because you don't talk about it. And so it starts forming. Like, you know, that's where you get dis-ease and start to get a disease. You get diseased from holding that trauma, and then it starts to form the disease. And so so it's important, you know, that we really hone in on your trauma. What is your patterns? What is your trauma patterns that was birthed and passed on and that you took in, but you knew someone right about it? Because we normalize dysfunction. You know, we learn to normalize dysfunction. And so let's keep going, y'all. So it says most dysfunctional families weren't trying to harm, they were emotionally surviving themselves. But survival is not the same as healing. Survival is not the same as healing. Regulations is how we build emotional safety, not just in ourselves, but from our children, our relationships, and generations to come, right? So, we're going to go into, let's explore how emotional survival shows up in everyday life, why so many families are stuck there, and what it takes to transition into emotional regulation, even when it feels impossible. Nothing is impossible. You could do this, right? You got to be willing to do it. So, how does emotional survival shows up in dysfunctional families? Here are real life patterns, and I told y'all this is a pattern. I know a lot of people like to call it a generational curse, but it's a pattern. It is a pattern, and patterns can be broken. If you learn a pattern, you can unlearn a pattern. You just got to be willing to, and you have to have the language in order to start breaking the pattern. So let's get into it. Here are real life patterns that come from emotional survival, not emotional health. Silence was taught to equal safety. That's emotional survival. Don't talk back. We don't talk about this in the family. You better not cry. So what did it teach us as children? Children learned that expression is dangerous. So they battle up everything and explode under pressure, right? So when you have those misbehaving children at school or troublesome children at school, sometimes, maybe a lot of times, that they are dealing with they're in emotional survival, right? And their nervous system is off wire. And so, because at home, all of this starts at home. All of this starts at home, y'all. That is our foundation, right? And so it creates hypervigilance. Emotional survival creates hypervigilance. Constantly scanning for mood shifts. Is mom okay? Watching your tone, your body language, and words to avoid triggering someone. Feeling like you're too much, even when you're just being human, right? So that's not peace. That's emotional surveillance. Kids in survival mode homes becomes masters at reading the room and suppressing themselves. Did you hear what that said? Children become masters of reading the room. Parentified roles. Becoming the emotional caretaker for your parents. You're the only one that I can talk to. Being forced to grow up too fast, so there's no space to learn regulation. Feeling guilty for having needs. So when kids have to survive emotionally for their parents, they skip the development of their own emotional tools, right? So overreaction or numbness. Adults in survival mode may explode over small things. Why didn't you close the cabinet? Or go cold, shut down, or refuse to engage. Now, this was me big time. Like, I didn't know how to regulate my emotions, so I would shut completely down. I would literally stop talking to people for months or weeks, and then I come around like nothing happened. You know, I didn't know the language of what I was doing, but now I you know. So because they never learned to tolerate the middle. It's either all or nothing. Emotional survival doesn't allow for curiosity, it doesn't allow for you to pause, and it does not allow for softness, right? So, why does dysfunctional families stay in survival mode? This is especially true for Black, brown communities where survival has been literal and generational. Okay? So, oppression, poverty, and racism has made survival a necessity. Many parents were never taught to feel, only to survive and keep going. Emotional regulation wasn't molded because emotional safety was never guaranteed, y'all. I don't have to, it says, I don't have time to be depressed. I have mouths to feed. What happens in this house, it stays in this house. This isn't just dysfunction, it's inherited trauma. Did you hear what that said? So how many of y'all have caught yourself saying something like that, right? I don't have time to be depressed. I have mouths to feed. What happens in this house stays in this house. That isn't it. I'm reading it again because it needs to sit in, like soak in. This isn't just dysfunction, it's inherited trauma. Y'all, we are passing on trauma. Unknown. Unbeknownst, unknown. We are passing on trauma. Right? So, moving towards emotional regulation. If you grew up in emotional chaos, you can learn safety now. Here's what healing that shifts looks like. Here's what healing, because like I told y'all, I don't take y'all down and I bring y'all back up. So how can, it says, you can learn safety now. So how can you learn safety now? Name the pattern without shame. That's the number one thing. Name the pattern without shame. And y'all know, y'all watch me every week, we break down definitions of trauma. This is what this show is about, is to give definitions so we can start making it make sense for our healing, right? So we can name these things. We'll know when we feel them and they come up in us. You know, I encourage you, if you did not follow me on YouTube, follow my YouTube channel. It's called Life of UnMothered. You will see my picture. All the videos will be posted over there because we know that these videos only last 30 days on YouTube, on Facebook. So I encourage y'all to go to my YouTube channel to watch the videos that I have done so far. I break down definitions pertaining to trauma every week to help the trauma survivors put a name to what we face, to what we experience, you know, because we have to name it in order to make it make sense for us. It will click once you hear that definition, and you can say, that's what I've been feeling, or that's what that is. Okay, that makes sense now, right? And so we need the names, we need the definitions, we need this language. It's very imperative that we understand this language. So number one is how you change it, is you have to name the pattern without shame. I was taught to shut down, not to self-soothe. My reactions were survival, not weakness. Shame keeps us in hiding. Naming the truth sets you free. Did you hear what it said? Naming the truth will set you free. That's a scripture in the Bible. The truth shall set you free. Right? Reparenting yourself. You have to reparent your emotional self. Right? We got to learn to reparent our emotional self. We're not too old to reparent ourselves. We have to unlearn the trauma that was taught to us and relearn the healthy fruit, right? We have to get rid of the rotten fruit and bring on the healthier fruit. And so by us doing these definitions, and I tell y'all every week, I only give y'all this much of these definitions, and I would encourage y'all to keep going and study more, because it's so much. I don't put definitions out the air. These definitions was here already before I even came along. I'm just bringing awareness. They call me the whistleblower of these definitions, because we toot, toot, you know what I'm saying? Like, we gonna learn these definitions, because what pain is not gonna do is pain is not gonna win. Pain is not going to win this battle over our lives, right? Because a lot of us is living in pain. That trauma is pain, it's pain. But what we're fighting for is not to let the pain win. And I'm so serious when I say that. So, number 2 on the list of moving forward into emotional regulation, you can learn safety now. So number 1 was naming the pattern without shame. For number 2 is repairing your emotional self. What do I need now is the question that you ask yourself. Do I need to cry? Do I need to breathe or speak up? 2, what would I say to my younger self? Right? What would you say to your younger self? Self-regulation is inner parenting, giving yourself the safety you never got, right? Number 3, practice regulation, not perfection. Y'all, practice regulation and not perfection. This is, ooh. Y'all, when I got out of being a perfectionist, it was life-changing. It was so life-changing to me. So it says, learn to sit with your emotions instead of stuffing or spilling them, right? Take small risks, like saying, I need a minute, instead of yelling or ghosting. That's a good one. That's a good one. Use tools. So you gonna journal, grounding techniques. Grounding means taking off your shoes, walking in the grass. That's grounding technique, right? Therapy and movement. So you want to move your body. Therapy and movement, you know. And so healing is clumsy, but every attempt is a seed of safety. Do you hear what that said? Every attempt to heal is a seed that you're planting of safety. Thank you for the stars. So, okay, so the summary. So you go from survival mode to regulation mode. So emotions equal threat in survival mode, but in regulations, emotions equal information, right? Survival mode, shut down and lash out. But in regulation mode, you pause, you process, and then you express. Okay? In survival mode, you stay silent and you play roles. Ooh. But in regulation mode, tell the truth. Build identity. Build your identity in your truth. Right? Survival mode, it keeps the peace at all costs. Y'all, how many of us in a family will not say nothing just to keep the peace, just so that we would do stuff that would cause war within us, staying silent. I'm not gonna say that I don't feel. But in regulation mode, instead of keeping the peace, build real peace through repair. You build real peace through repair. y'all. So it says teaching regulation. But like I said, first we have to learn how to regulate ourselves first, right? And then we can teach our children how to regulate, right? So with is this is what we got growing up. This as children, for us trauma survivors, is what we got growing up and what we pass to our children. So you probably can resonate with this within you, and that you can realize the pattern that you pass into your children by saying these things. Okay, so it says when you grew up in survival mode, parenting can feel like trying to build a bridge you've never walked across. But it's possible. And every regulated response you model becomes a blueprint for your child's nervous system. Now, y'all know what is the quick saying that people say? There's no handbook to parenting. And it's not, because we nobody passes a handbook to parenting. We don't know, but however, learning these definitions, you can create a handbook to parenting. Yep. Yep. You can start creating your own handbook to parenting. You can. And so let's not stop using that excuse anymore. There's no handbook to parenting. When you learn how to heal, that's when you're going to learn how to pass on that healthy parenting guide for your children and their children, right? And so it says model, don't just tell, right? So kids learn regulation by lecture. They learn it from watching you regulate first. They learn it from watching you regulate first. Regulate yourself in real time. Instead of this, stop crying. You'll be fine. Try this. It's okay to cry. I know that it hurts. I'm here for you. Even if your voice shakes, it says say this. Even if your voice shakes, and even if you're still learning, right? So we can say that to ourselves. It's okay to cry. Because even though we in our grown adult age, sometimes we still feel like it's not okay to cry. But it is. It is. That's one form of how you regulate your emotions, is that you allow yourself to cry. And I tell people, when you cry, do not force yourself to stop. Let it stop naturally. Just cry and let it stop naturally, because when you force it to stop, you're still suppressing. You're still suppressing that emotion. But feel if that caused tears, cry until you just feel like I got it out naturally, right? So number 2, name emotions out loud. We have to name our emotions out loud. I told y'all, in order to reveal it, we got to reveal it in order to heal it. In order for us to reveal it, we got to say it out loud, right? So help them connect language to feelings. That's a way that you will help connect your language to your feelings. Because if you can't name it, they can't tame it. If you can't name your feelings, you can't tame your feelings. That is so powerful, right? Very powerful. Because, so it says, say things like, it looks like you're frustrated, and that's okay. Are you feeling nervous right now? Sometimes I get overwhelmed too. Let's breathe together. And I learned some breathing techniques too during the conference, which is really beautiful. And it says this teaches emotions are normal. They are not bad. And they don't have to be hidden. So it says validate before you correct. Validation is not weakness, it's safety. Example, a child will say, I hate this. You never listen to me. You will say, I hear you up. I hear how upset you are. That's a big feeling. We can talk about it when you're ready. We can talk about it when you're ready. So even when you have to set boundaries, validating emotions build trust, right? And so this is how we allow ourselves to start correcting our emotions, is that first and foremost, we have to build safety and trust within ourselves, right? And one thing, when I first started talking, and when I first started talking, the only thing when I was healing from hurt, healing from a lot of people, that hurt me in different ways, is that I kept hearing people say, you got to forgive them right away. You got to forgive them in order for you to move on. But nobody had ever took the time out to ask me, have I forgiven myself? And I know people are like, well, what do you mean? Why would you forgive yourself? I know, but I had to learn that I had to forgive myself for not knowing, right? I had to forgive myself for carrying other people's mess and not knowing, because when I was younger, I became a fixer. When I was younger, I became a people pleaser, you know. So I would gravitate towards people that need stuff fixing, you know. Um, and that was hard for me, and that's something that I'm still learning, like for real. So healing is every day. It's a journey. But as long as you know that you got community, you are not healing alone. And a lot of us feel like we are alone on this healing journey. You're not. You're not alone. It's a community of us trauma survivors out there that's living, that are actually living outside of trauma. Even though we still healing, we don't live in trauma anymore. We can recant our story without reliving our story. And so that's very important, that you find somebody that you trust, that you can build community with. Continue to watch me every week, because this is community. Ask questions in the chats. I'm gonna announce to where we gonna get a Zoom call together where we can actually see each other's faces to say, hey, you are my sister, you are my brother, and we build that community, because that's very important. If you feel like you are alone, then you're gonna isolate, right? And sometimes isolation, it can be dangerous. It can really be dangerous, especially when you going through something mentally. And so if you got community that's speaking your language, then it can press you forward instead of keeping you stay stuck, right? Because of course we're going to talk about the trauma, but we're not going to stay there. We learning tools to leave the trauma behind, right? But sometimes you do. It's not sometimes. You do have to trickle back and touch them old wounds. You have to. You have to trickle back and touch them hard places that you thought that you buried and that you forgot. Because under all of that trauma, y'all, that I fought fiercely to get out of, that I walked away from family for, that I fought for my life to become free and unbound, I didn't know that I was going to be authors. I didn't know that I was going to be entered into magazines. I didn't know that I was going to have certificates. I had no clue, being buried under all of that trauma. But I'm going to tell you one thing. If you be brave enough and you step into your truth and you start moving forward to heal your trauma, it's like a reward at the end of that darkness. It's a reward at the end of that darkness. And God is going to send you everything that you need. Everything. And y'all, I'm speaking from experience. Y'all know I don't come on this show and sugarcoat anything. I speak my truth. I'm transparent. I'm authentic with you, everybody, every week. Because I found my voice. I reclaimed who Mona is. I don't wait on nobody permission to tell me who I am. And I learned that this weekend at the conference. So, with that being said, y'all, I want to read y'all something that, before I get off live, I got 3 minutes. Y'all, I want to read y'all something that I wrote for this book right here. It says, breaking the cycle is not betrayal. They told you to hush, to keep quiet, to bury the truth and protect the family's name. But tell me, what is a family's worth if it's built on silence? What is a name worth if it's covered in pain? You did not break the family. You broke the curse. You broke the chains that were choking you. You broke the silence that was strangling generations. You breaking the cycle is not betrayal. It's bravery. It is love in its rarest form, because love is not covered in wounds. Love is healing them. So yes, you speak up. You walk away. You choose freedom. And they may call you rebellion, but I call it restoration. They may call you disrespect, but I call it deliverance. They may call it betrayal, but I call it breaking the chains. You didn't ruin the family. You rescued the future. You didn't destroy legacy. You rewrote it. You didn't break the family. You broke the cycle. And that's so real. That's so real. You are not breaking the family. You should not have to live in guilt and shame for wanting to be free, from wanting to speak your truth, for wanting to be your transparent self, to live in your authenticity. You should want that for your generation. So people talk bad about me. They spew dirt on my name. But guess what? I did this for my lineage, for my legacy, for my bloodline that comes from me. And you should want the same for yourself and yours too. So with that being said, y'all, thank you for tuning in to another episode of Life of Mother, from hopelessness to hope, healing what's been hidden. Y'all, stay tuned. I have a few more announcements, but I am going to post every book that I got from the conference. And I encourage you guys to support and read those books, because it's healing in what's written. It's healing in what's written. And so with that being said, y'all, as y'all know, I came on Sunday at 8. So this is the new day that we are going to do Life of Mother every Sunday at 8 p.m. because, as y'all know, my schedule is getting full to where my weekdays is I'm literally here doing stuff. And so I feel like Sundays is more calmer. Everybody is more relaxed, and you can actually jump on and watch Life on Mother without, worrying about having to go to the kids game on Thursday nights and, this and that. So I just, went with Sunday. However, if by any chance that I can still come on Thursdays at 8, guess what? I'm going to be on. Yep, I'm still coming on. So you might get 2 episodes, you might get 3, who knows? Whatever God puts in my heart to do, that's what I'm gonna deliver. So with that being said, y'all be blessed, stay encouraged, and remember, this isn't just a moment, this is a movement. Y'all have a great evening.